Actor Neil Newbon is probably best known to PC gamers for his award-winning portrayal as Astarion in Baldur's Gate 3. We sat down with Newbon to discuss his career, his craft, and his criticism of AI tools replacing human performances in games. We've timestamped the talking points throughout, but make sure you stick around to the end to hear his fascinating advice to anyone interested in getting into acting for video games. Newbon's acclaim as Baldur's Gate 3's Astarion has naturally led to lots of job offers for similar kinds of roles. We asked if he was reluctant to play characters too similar to Astarion now.
You have talked about getting approached for roles that are similar to Astarion.
Somebody once did something very silly, and they said, "Oh, he'll really like it. We based it on Astarion." I was like, well, I kind of done that, you know.
How has that made you feel? Because in some sense, it's recognition.
Of course.
It's like, oh man, this type of character would be perfect for what the experience I'm making.
I'm not insulted at all. I think it's a wonderful. When somebody approaches you with that mindset, it might be a little like, maybe not thinking necessarily about what the actor is interested in doing, but I do appreciate where it comes from. And I'm very humbled by people's attention, and also people that have done a lot of work and think my work's good. It's like, wow, it's amazing. The problem is I don't want to reproduce that role, because that role is there. I'd like to play him again, sure. I just don't want to necessarily do something that's so similar to him, the lines will start bleeding into each other too much, because then it's a disservice, I think, to that version of that idea of a character that maybe another actor would have a very different take on. So I'm very wary of not trying to reproduce roles, because I just think another actor would do it better.
How could I not fight for such a noble cause?
I mean, doing an RP accent, actually, no, he's got a high inflected accent, so it's not even RP. But there's similarities of accents. Doesn't mean the character's the same. And I think that's the thing for me. The accent might be the same accent, sure. I'll do my darndest to change register or pitch to make it different enough so it doesn't immediately sound like this very successful character I've had. But I think if somebody's basing the character on a character I've done, that's really the issue of like, yeah, okay, I'm not sure I'm the best person to do this then, you know.
It's never good news with a mysterious voice, is it? Always warning demons, never warning nymphs bathing nearby.
You might assume that acting in a brightly lit motion capture studio would be more limiting than on location or on a film set with props and costumes. But that's not how Newbon sees it.
I noticed this back in 2016. Final Fantasy Kingslave came out. I did the performance capture for it, for Nyx. Aaron Paul did the voice. Aaron Paul's mind-blowingly talented. And I met him only one time. He's a lovely guy. That was interesting because we both got to collaborate through Takashi Nizuda, who was the director of that. We both got to collaborate in the performance. The reason that I realized that we had subtlety in performance was watching a little eye squint that I did in the scene that I didn't think they would capture, because it was a tiny, I didn't want to say a line of dialogue because I think it was overwritten. So Takeshi and I talked about it and he was cool with me dropping the line. Instead, I just did it as an eye, like a wince of pain when somebody asked me about my friend that had just died or something like that. They kept it in, they favored the camera angle so you could pick it up. The second I saw that, I realized we had subtlety now. And that was a big deal in performance capture. I've learned so much in performance capture. You get used to the HMC, you get used to the Velcro and the balls and that kind of stuff all over your body. I actually think it's weirdly a purer way of working than film and TV is, because it's complete instrument, total body experience. You get to take your face off, so you can play anything that's appropriate to your ethnic background, or alien, or monster. You get to be multiple characters in the same project. If anything, I think it's more freeing than TV and film, when a lot of it is so close or here that actually a lot of actors sometimes may not feel in their bodies in the performance, because everything is so focused up here. In performance capture, it's a wide and a close-up simultaneously. It's theatre technique and film at the same time. If anything, what people perceive as a limitation, I see as freedom.
My inclination would be to think, oh, if you're in a mocap studio, you have nothing around you. You know,
that's theatre.
But you're saying that's a pure experience of acting.
Waiting for Godot is a bench. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead is like a coin. The whole thing has to be created by the craft work and the fun that the actors can have. Now, performance capture volume, you get all of that, and you get the closeness, the close-up and the wide simultaneously of film. So you can be still, you can have a quiet, introspective moment and still get to play in this wonderful space. Again, it's theatre technique and film technique. So for me, man, it's amazing. You get to do everything. It's very cool.
That's pretty special.
Newbon has been outspoken on his skepticism around AI replacing human actors. We asked how the industry can protect roles like his and whether he's optimistic about the direction the industry is moving in with AI.
Here's the thing. AI should be a tool to enhance what people are doing, not to replace people's jobs. I feel that generative AI replaces too much because I've heard different people talk about how it's very challenging to do all this voice work. It's like, yeah, that's the point. The point is the challenge, is the creation of it. Does it cost money? Of course it does. But then if you don't do that, if you're just scraping performances from all over the internet or from other things, it's not original. Plus the actor that you're then superseding isn't going to have that one day or hour or multiple hours or hundreds of hours of money to support their family themselves. So some of them are going to drop off eventually if their work is marginalized. They won't be actors anymore because they can't afford to be actors anymore. So you'll lose those people's talents. I just think it's like, if you have the money to do it, and we're talking about a relatively small amount of money, it's peanuts really compared to the entire cycle of a big game. Even an indie game, I would say. If you can find a way to afford to do it, you should do it. Because that's the point. Yeah, you can now make AI make an entire game. Somebody did a Doom replica, right? Sure, cool, great. I'm not really interested in that. I want to see some flaws. I want to see the ideas that were just insane that came out of nowhere. I want to see the humanity in the games, even if it's about aliens, Because isn't that the point of storytelling, is to connect us all? Game playing is the same thing, to have a shared experience. So I have my feelings about generative AI. AI itself can be useful in certain ways. I just don't think you should use it for performance. I'm optimistic because ultimately, I think with everything that comes into these spaces, AI is a new thing. But CGI, people had a reaction to that eventually. People now really prefer it with in-camera stuff, for instance. I think AI will be a thing for a bit. Optimistically speaking, I think people will want to connect to the actor and the character in a way that you can't do with an AI program. Actors are wonderful conduits of the players, the audience, connecting to this amazing experience they've had, which is an active storytelling medium, as we know. You can't do that with an AI program. And if you speak to an AI program and they say, oh, wonderful to meet you, I'm not entirely sure I believe them or what that means. Whereas if you get an actor like Roger Clark, these amazing people, for instance, Jennifer English, you have this connective moment where you can talk about your experience with their character and the game as a whole. I'm optimistically thinking that people ultimately don't really want a program as their favorite character. They want a person. Because that person has humanity, and we all have this collective unconsciousness that we can get another person empathically. We may not have the same life, but if somebody tells us their story, of which I've heard hundreds of stories of trauma, of desperation, of loneliness, and finding other people through the community, and then sharing that with the actor that played that character in that game they love, you cannot replace that.
With this in mind, we asked Newbon if he was happy with the level of collaboration he sees between developers and actors in creating characters and stories.
I think there's definitely good examples out there now where you see, oh yeah, these people really work very closely with the actors and with the writers and the directors all together, with the studio devs to actually ensure that really everybody's chipping in. I'm currently directing a game called Starfinder, which was very early days, but I spoke to Epic Tellers, who are the developers, when they brought me on to be director and to help out in performance. And a big ethos was very much about, like, listen, we're approaching some really amazing actors. You want to get them to add on their flavor for the character so that we can evolve it just past the words on the script. I remember when I first started acting, it was very much like, we're not too worried about the story, it's kind of like defining why we get to do the gameplay. Whereas now appetites have definitely changed. It's more sophisticated, game graphics are rendered with more subtlety. You can be subtle in the game now. Back in 2010, not so much, whereas now we have still moments in games and they work incredibly well.
Despite the massive revenue games generate, many actors in AAA games are paid far less than their film or TV counterparts. We asked if Newbon feels actors in games are fairly compensated, and would he support a stronger union push for motion capture performers?
I definitely think mocap performers definitely deserve more credit. We've seen that with Maxine in Clair Obscur. And I've got to say, Charlie Cox is an awesome human being. I met him only a few times. I don't know him very well, but he's lovely and delightful. And I like the idea that he's very conscious of wanting to support another actor. I think that's important that mocap actors get, actors in mocap get more recognition, because it's not just doing the body, you're adding to the performance organically. In terms of like compensation, I mean, we don't get paid badly. Can we get paid more? I'm always going to say yes, because actors are notoriously broke. So if we can help actors get paid more, yeah, sure, not a problem. It's a little different with film and games because the developers are the majority part of making the game. We come on board to help the immersion and narrative. Do we deserve more money? I think everybody deserves more money. Are we fairly compensated? I think we are far better compensated than we used to be, that's for sure. And do we deserve recognition? I think for our part, but so do the developers, So it's a little different, I think, in terms of, you can't think about it as you would do film and TV, or even theatre for that matter. It's a very different structure, and the developers will spend 8 years on a project. We may come in for, Baldur's Gate is an unusual experience of 4.5 years, but we may only come in for a couple of weeks, to add it in. So you have to levy all that kind of stuff. Bottom line answer, actors deserve more money. Sure, why not? Do we deserve all the credit? No, because the developers spend years and years and years on making these games, especially with indie developers where the money is very tight.
We asked if there is a studio or franchise he hasn't worked with, but really wants to.
Oh, so many, dude. I'd love to work with CD Projekt on literally anything. I really admire their work.
Yeah.
Santa Monica are amazing. Naughty Dog, I mean, dude, there's too many. I'd love to work with Bethesda. I haven't had the opportunity to work with them yet. I don't really care in many ways, as long as the studio is cool, the project is interesting, the characters are fun. Again, I've done like tiny little bit parts on Fallout London, which was a passion project because it was fun.
Yep.
I've also done massive AAAs. I'm working on some things that I really want to tell you about, I can't, and those are really fun jobs. Again, playing characters that are, one of whom is the literal antithesis of Astarion. So I get all these wonderful opportunities to audition and sometimes get to work as well. But there's way too many, the list is way too long. Like, man, I'm just playing Dispatch at the moment, and that's like, dude, the performances are off the hook. I'd love to work with those guys too, etc., etc., etc.
Great.
Yeah. I come from theatre, and I went into film and then TV and then games. So for me, I started off with the wonderful Ed Wilson at National Youth Theatre, who's long since passed, was a very beautiful human being. And he really installed in us during those early days when I was still a teenager. It's really all about storytelling and character. So don't worry. I'm never too worried these days about my career. For me, success was always putting food on the table, a roof over my head, and never having to do any other job than the job that I love. That is success. Everything that's come after that has been this wonderful bonus and privilege. And the fact that I keep getting to work, people still take chances on me, still offer up all these wonderful, exciting characters. It really brings me very emotionally almost to tears sometimes to think how privileged and lucky I am. So the fact that I get to keep working, I don't care which genre it's in. As long as it's fun, interesting characters, working with great collaborative teams, I'm there. So yeah.
And finally, what advice would Newbon give to people aspiring to work as actors in video games specifically?
The number one thing that people come up to me, like conventions and things like that, they say, how do I get to be in the games as an actor? First thing in question is, have you trained? And specifically, have you trained in theatre? Do you read? Do you watch films? Do you go to theatre and plays and da da da? The answer is yes. Cool, great. You learned how to sing, learned your voice. Great, so now you have to go out and reach out to people. Do you have representation? Get representation. And so on and so forth. It's not an easy way to get in, but there are very conventional ways of getting in. Get an agent. Do other work, have a life, all that kind of good stuff. The worry I have is when people are focused on just doing voice work, which you can start in, which is great. But if they skip over the training, especially things like theatre, they're going to lose out on character work, on really understanding what it is to embody the life of a character, regardless of which tool or technical skill they follow, because everything's open, Meisner method, Laban, all that stuff is good. There is no one path. But a lot of people skip over that Because they can do a funny voice or they can do accents. It's like, well, that's not enough. That's not really getting to the soul of the character. That's not creating and having fun with ideas. So I would say to young actors that want to get into the work that I do, start at the very beginning of your journey. Take your time. Learn the craft work, learn theatre work, do a play, even if it's amateur dramatics. Get on stage, burn and crash and burn a scene or a play to the ground, because there's nothing that teaches you more than a making mistake. Here's the thing about all this. Failure, if you're not failing, you're not challenging yourself. If you don't make mistakes, you're not going to learn anything. Success doesn't teach you anything. It reveals who you really are, which is, again, another interesting thing about being successful. It actually shows the person that you are, deep down. So if people are afraid of failing, it's going to be a tough road for them, you know? But start at the beginning, start all that good stuff, and maybe eventually you might find yourself in game space.
Thanks to Neil Newbon for this fascinating chat, and to you for watching. For more in-depth interviews like this, subscribe to PC Gamer.